initial impressions of just watching tape on Mustafa, and then what have it been like kind of working with him here this week?
Yeah, his tape from last year was pretty impressive for a rookie. A violent, fast trigger football player, and we've only had a couple days with him now, but he's made of the right stuff. That's for damn sure.
Robert, Mika Egbuka, I hope I'm saying that right. What is it about him, or what skill set does he have that's given him so much success so early in his career?
He's powerful for such a young man. Powerful hands, and obviously he's playing with a lot of confidence. You give a young guy a lot of confidence, and then the sky's the limit. So, and they're doing a good job with him too, putting him in positions to be successful. And Baker is playing at a level that's MVP quality, and so for him, like I said, big, strong, confident football player right now.
Robert, you're surprised that pass rush hasn't been as good without Nick Bosa. I mean, has it been at an acceptable level in your estimation?
We'll continue to grow. It's I'm not hitting any panic buttons. There's a lot of young guys in there still trying to find their way through the NFL. I thought even against the Rams, felt like Huff was just a breath away from ending the game a couple of times there in the fourth quarter. But can it be better? Absolutely. Could it be worse? Absolutely. But I'm not at that point where we're going to panic. We're going to keep working with these young guys and giving them opportunities to rush the passer, and they'll get better as the year goes.
Robert, there's some numbers that show that Mikael Williams might be the fourth most doubled defensive lineman in the league. Well, how's he handling those doubles, and is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, he's doing a great job. He is from a run perspective, he's doing a really nice job setting edges. And there's like him and Alfred, for example. They're still trying to find their ways as pass rushers. There's times where Alfred, being the big man that he is looks like he's trying to play finesse, and there's times where Mikael's trying to run through people, and just having that change up where Mikael might have to play a little finesse and Alfred might run through somebody's face. It's just they're learning their style, they're learning what works for them, and the cool thing is that they've got tremendous intent. They play with tremendous strain. They're smart. They're upbeat. So we're excited to work with them. They'll continue to get better.
It's been a week since the Rams game, but can you go back and just reflect on the fourth down stop and just whatever you told the guys going into that specific play and your view of how it unfolded?
No, it was. I've been asked. First off, much respect to those guys. Stafford, Sean McVay, and Mike LaFleur, they outstanding job from a game plan standpoint, putting themselves in the position they put themselves in. And, we played it like short yardage, figured call our best short yardage call. They were going to call their best short yardage call. And to be honest, like that play that Sean ran, I don't want to speak for him, but based on our calculations, the success rate was ridiculously high when they run that play. And even if you knew what was coming, they still manage. They ran one earlier in the game where Upton hit it 2 yards in the backfield, and Kyron Williams still freaking got the first, or the back still got the first down. So it was one of those back and forths. I remember the first go around when we called timeout, we had 4 DNs on the field, so we needed to burn a timeout. And then obviously we got our personnel out there playing with a short yardage mentality. They hard count and called timeout, thought maybe, okay, they're going to kick the field goal. They still sent the group out there, and, just talking to Kyle, I said, hey, Kyle, based on the look, might need one. They broke the huddle and lined up the way they did and said, all right, we're going to let it ride, see what happens. And credit to the guys, man, they made a heck of a play. Triggered, played fast, and luckily we came on the right side of it.
Moved inside there right before the snap. I saw it when I watched the tape. Lucas and Fred really seemed keyed and ready to respond to that. Is that film study over the course of the week? Were they looking for that indicator?
It was one of those take a shot deals. There was, like I said, it was one of their best plays, and they're very, very successful at it. And it was I think it was the third or fourth time we saw it. So they, credit to, again, our guys. They triggered, they took their shot, and they ran that play. So
was quoted as saying, "Get in the C gap and F it up." Did they have that?
When you run that play, the C gap is everything.
So they have that kind of initiative, though, to recognize that and say, you do that and.
Absolutely. And these young men are smart. You know, you give them the information, but they still have to film study. They're still out there feeling those bullets being shot, especially those young guys, to be able to recognize that and trigger and play as fast as they did to create that knockback. Fred playing into that C-gap, creating the initial knockback was critical, and then Siegel just triggering from his depth to finish it off and keep it from falling forward. It was a tremendous team effort.
Nightmare a few weeks ago.
The other stop, not that fourth down stop, but the other stop with Alfred Collins, Christian McCaffrey, and Fred Warner both saying that was the best play that they had ever seen. Have you ever seen a guy, let alone a rookie, make a play like that, a stop like that, given the circumstance? And did that make Alfred that much more impressive, given his slow start?
So Alfred, you know, like one, that was probably one of the coolest individual efforts I've ever seen in a game of football. I mean, he splits a double team, and a cool side note to Alfred is during the evaluation process, we talked about how Alfred gives us something that we haven't really had since Buckner or Armstead. It's just a guy with tremendous length to be able to make those plays where he's just sprawling out and making a play that most D linemen in this league can't make, and it showed up there. The amount of strain and individual effort that it took for him to split the double team and just violent punch out is probably one of the coolest and most impressive individual efforts I've seen from an interior D lineman that close to the goal line. So that clip will be on teach tapes for a very, very, very long time. I could promise that. But you know, Alfred, he did get off to a slow start in training camp, but that young man, he's made of the right stuff. His day in and day out attitude, his work ethic, his strain, all of it. I mean, it's important to him. He loves this game, and he's going to be a problem. He'll continue to grow, and he's going to be a big, big problem in this league if he keeps the same mindset and the trajectory that he's going on.
You had a nightmare a few weeks ago that the Saints were going to light you up. How often do you have football nightmares, and what often happens in them?
I have nightmares all the time, man. I think I was up last night. I mean, I came home I got home at like midnight, and there was like 3 of my babies sitting in the sleeping in the bed, and I was like, where the hell am I going to sleep? I was cuddling sneak into the corner of the bed, and just stare at the ceiling for a couple hours. And my mind is always racing, and thoughts of trying to help our guys be in the best position possible. Some good ideas, some bad ideas, but that's the hard part of being a football coach. I mean, cortisol levels are always high, so.
These nightmares include Egbuka this week.
A lot of Baker, a lot of their skill guys, their backs, all of them. They do an outstanding job, and that Baker, like I said, he's playing at an MVP level. He makes that whole thing go, and again, credit to all the young guys who are stepping up with all the injuries that they're having. They're doing a really nice job putting up a lot of points on a lot of really good defenses.
Can you think of any other times in your career where your defense has gone on the road and the opposing offense has had to go to a silent count like the Rams did a couple of times on Thursday?
Yeah, I feel like that's been the case at any time we go down there. You know, it's in 2019 it was the Coliseum, and it felt the same way. It was COVID the next year, but no, not like that. You know, SoFi, that was my first experience with fans in SoFi. Because if you guys remember, my only game in SoFi had been the COVID game. So, but no, it's pretty cool. We travel. I joke around. I say that the most Niner fans can't. You know, it's so expensive to live in the Bay. It's probably cheaper to go to a road game. You know, but it's good to see how much our fans travel. They're second to none.
It's on the other side of the line, but Adrian Martinez, what have you seen from him in his growth from when you had him in Jets versus now?
Yeah, Adrian's cool, man. If anyone gets a chance to spend a couple of days with Adrian, you come away impressed. And if you really think about it, everywhere he's gone, he's won. He won in college. He won in the UFL. He was MVP in the UFL. And I've always said all it takes is an opportunity, and what you do with your opportunity is what's going to create your path, if you will. And it's awesome to have Adrian here. You guys know how I feel about Kyle and his staff. I think they're the best in the world, and And so he's getting an opportunity to be with some of the greatest coaches and in a really cool room with Mac and Brock and all those guys. So he's got a chance to do something cool. And, you know, if he ever gets his opportunity to step on the field, I think he's going to do awesome.
As far as game planning, how much of a resource is Kyle, and vice versa? How much do you pitch in with the offensive game plan?
Pitch in? No. I'd probably ruin it, but no. My conversations with Kyle, we're always going back and forth, talking ball. He's probably one of the cooler ones to talk to, and it's not to have that resource at your disposal and not use it would be silly on my part. So.
And Alfred, real quick, he had mentioned after the game that the play that he got the punch out on, it was similar to something he saw earlier in the game, and he kind of overran it. Just in terms of his mental growth and recognizing things in real time and making adjustments like that, how has he maybe improved?
All of them. You know, I had a really cool conversation with Upton Stout on the in practice today. He was asking how he can feel routes when we're 99. You know, we want 99.9 vision on the quarterback, and he's like, well, I'm also responsible for these routes. How do I feel them? How do I do that? And my answer to him was simply reps. Eventually, you get to the point where you recognize formations, you recognize indicators, you recognize from film study on how teams like to attack us as a defense that you just know what the route is, so you can play. You're playing routes without ever having to see them because you feel, you know, you can see the quarterback, you see the mannerisms, and that's where you get faster and faster and faster. But you know, that's kind of the whole thing with our scheme. People say we don't do a lot, but what we do it very, very fast, and it's very, very sound. And it's fast because our guys get to the point where they just know what's happening to them, so they can go faster. And that's where Upton's at. That's where Alfred's at. That's where all these rookies are. They're still learning, and they need reps to be able to gather information, gather feel of football, start understanding how teams attack us, how teams block us, how teams come at us on a play-in, play-out basis. And once they get to that point of true understanding, that's when you see their ultimate speed.
Good afternoon. Fire away.
Where is Adrian Martinez at in grasping the playbook, and if he has to go in for some reason?
I think he's right where he needs to be. Super impressed with Adrian since he's been here. He's a really smart guy. You know, you can tell he's gotten a little more reps just because of the, you know, Mac kind of progressing a little bit through the week, and Adrian hasn't missed a beat. He's been on it, and I feel like Adrian can go out there and run our offense. So really confident in him.
So there wouldn't be any limitation in the plays that you could call. He's got the full playbook.
Yep, 100%.
What's Brock Purdy's contribution to the game plan and getting Mac up to speed to play?
Yeah, I think just Brock's presence every day in the meeting rooms. You know, Brock's been through our process of preparing for games and how we install and how we you know, watch film and all those things, and he can kind of he's just helpful to those guys, you know, and kind of sharing his process and you know, talking to guys about what he sees in a defense. Kind of how he would do things. So just his presence, you know, his experience, just kind of being words of wisdom for Mac and for Adrian. You know, that's really all he can do in terms of, you know, helping those guys prepare and then just being there to support him. So.
I'm sure we were watching film on a guy like Mac before you signed him. You can envision how he's going to fit, just, you know, stylistically. But in terms of toughness, things that you can't see until you get up close to him, what have you learned about him and what you've seen from him so far?
I think that's very true. You know, you don't really know until you get a guy and you see him play. And, you know, I think we all knew Mac was a tough player. I think we didn't have any assumption he wasn't. But when you see a guy go out there and battle and you know, work through the injuries and get hit and stay in the game when it's not looking good, or when you know, when we have to come from behind in a 2-minute drill, like all those things. And you learn a lot about a guy. And Max just keeps proving time and time again that he's made of the right stuff, and he's built to play quarterback in this league. So it's been pretty cool.
Last week, how close did you think? Did you think you were going to have to go to Adrian there?
I think for a moment we were all pretty scared, you know, when he was down, and then he popped up and jogged off, and we're like, all right, we took a breath. But you know, so yeah.
Nick Saban was saying last week that when he had Mac at Alabama, he called him Mac and Rowe because of his high school tennis background, but also because he was prone to going off. If he made a bad throw or he did something bad, and he was throwing like almost mini tantrums. And I don't know if he was exaggerating, but I'm curious if is there any part of that still with him now, or is he totally zeroed in?
No, I mean, Mac's very competitive, and you do see it in those moments where he might miss a throw or somebody was off on a play. He just has a passion, and it can come out, sometimes, and we love it. I mean, it's part of what makes him who he is. It makes him a competitor. It makes him, he's very detailed, and he likes things very detailed. And he's hard on himself. He's hard on his teammates. And that's what we like about him. As far as the tennis thing goes, it's funny you say that because we happen to think, the way a guy moves in tennis and Mac's tennis background can help you as a thrower, the way you move in a pocket. There's similarities. And, it's both of those are true.
What have you seen as far as the interaction between Kyle and Robert as far as, game planning and back and forth, and how much of a resource they are for each other?
Coach Saleh? Oh, yeah. I mean, that's really cool to be a part of and to see, just the way that they both kind of share their knowledge and experience with each other. Kyle kind of sharing things he's seen from an offensive perspective to help him and vice versa. And Coach Saleh is helpful to me. We talk all the time. We just kind of, share what we're seeing with our opponents. And it's a great working relationship. And, I've benefited from it. Our whole team has. So it's good.
Tampa has a really good run D, but Seattle ran for over 6 yards a carry last week. What did the film show when you watched? How did they have success?
Yeah, they hit a few big ones. I think they had a couple carry. I know they had like a 30-yard carry. Walker maybe had like another 21. So they had a few explosives, so that adds up. They did some stuff to kind of, I think, wear down Tampa a little bit just by staying on the field. And so just kind of, the fatigue caught Tampa on a drive or two that allowed them to run the ball. But, they're the number one run defense in the league for a reason. They're big, they're physical, they do things schematically that really can shut down your run game. So yeah, we see some things that Seattle did that you'd love to do, but we know they're going to be ready to go and ready to stop the run. So it's going to be a big challenge.
How much is what Kendrick Bourne has done on the field to give you confidence in what can happen going forward?
Yeah, I mean, he just gets better every week. He's a gamer. He's still, you see a guy who's still learning to grasp our offense schematically, but he gets better every week, and he's such a joy to be around because he's all in. He's got a great attitude. He works at it, and I think he's a guy who's just, the more he's out there, the more he's going to help us. And so, really excited about what he's done, what we hope he can keep doing. So,
is his chemistry with Mac evident on the field and not just in games, but at practice throughout?
Yeah, you can tell they have a good relationship. They have the history. You can just tell they can talk to each other in the game too. When I think KB had the drop and Matt can just go to him and just communicate and get him dialed in for the next play. And it's really cool. And we kind of knew that about them. They had a relationship in the past. So, I'm glad it's working out for us now.
The injury setback, but how would you assess how Connor Colby has done?
Connor?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Connor's done a good job. He's like a lot of rookies. There's ups and downs, and there's plays you'd want to have back. There's things he can do better. He's battling through some stuff, but a lot of guys are. So Connor's just about getting better every week and learning from the film. We're coaching him hard. He's playing hard. But it's like anybody else. You got to learn from the previous game. You got to keep getting better. And I think the more he's out there, he's going to keep getting better. So, yeah.
Kyle, over the last few years, he talks more about the rushing attempts than the rushing yards and how important they are. And even in the last game, we like 70-some yards on 30 carries. That doesn't look good. But how important are those attempts to sort of, keep the defense honest?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the last game, we didn't have good yards, but we had the attempts, which means we're on the field. We're staying on the field, and we're converting some third downs and we're sustaining some drives. And even though the runs aren't producing what we want them to, we're still able to get those. And even if they're 4-yard runs, 3-yard runs, they still have that effect on the defense, And so that is a positive. But do we want to keep getting better? Yeah. Do we want to have more yards? Yes. But anytime you can stay on the field, whether it be throwing the ball or not, you're going to get those attempts, and that means you're moving the ball. And so it doesn't always work out that way, but that's how it did work out on Thursday, So we want to we want to get more production on the ground, but as long as we're staying on the field, we're going to keep trying. So.
What are the characteristics of a Bulls defense? I know he brings a lot of pressure, but what does it look like?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of pressure. You said it. It starts with just the experience of the guys who are running the show. I mean, you look at Levante David in the back end, and you got Vita in the front, and just guys who've been there, and those core guys. They run that scheme very well. They've been doing it for years, so they have a lot of confidence in each other. They're tough to go against. They're very physical. They challenge you with pressures. They challenge you with man coverage. They get after you on third down with blitzes, and so they're a defense that can make a lot of plays, and you got to be ready for all that stuff. And it's the challenge of the week, and that's what we're getting ready for. Appreciate it. Thank you.